Hello, welcome to Painting with Jer. In today's episode, we're going to make a blobby head. When we're painting a blobby head, we can go in a lot of different directions. There's no need to stay on the trail that's been forged for us before. We can allow ourselves to open up to possibilities and just paint. I'm going to be starting this with some acrylic paints. Then I'm going to be airbrushing it and finishing it with some oils. I have 1 hour to finish this. Before my time runs out, and I invite you to come along on this journey. At this point, I have no idea what I'm going to paint, and that's okay. You can go into the studio not knowing what you're going to do. Sometimes something will come out of it, sometimes nothing comes out of it, sometimes good things come out of it. That's really what we call the muse, generally. So I've got my space set up. I've got this new canvas in the middle. Here's my tablet. Got a picture of this action figure which I dipped in wax and paint. I was just playing around. I wanted something to catch these different surfaces, because we want our blobs to be lumpy and happy. So we're going to just start off with a little bit of red and black, like so. Just mix a little red and black together, and you'll get a really brown color. We're going to jump into this. Don't think too much at this stage, just filling the canvas with color. Already we can see we have some indication of a portrait. I'm going to come in with a little bit of blue. We can think about a light source. Imagine the light source coming this way, down. And we're going to imagine that light source hitting some of these blobs. All we're doing with two-dimensional painting is trying to represent the three-dimensional world in front of us on a flat surface. Pretty simple, but often these simple tasks are the most difficult. Giving yourself some sort of a limitation can also be helpful in creativity. Now we're going to start blocking in some greens. How about a green background? I made that decision as I was mixing the color. Let's just plop that in. Again, nothing has to be perfect now. We're just sketching, getting a feel for what's going to happen as we just plop that color in. For some reason, yellow always wants to get on you. Something about cadmium yellow, maybe just because it doesn't dry so fast, but seems to always get everywhere. And that's what I'm using here. I'm using cad medium and a phthalo blue. All we need is these three colors to begin with. There we go. Just working that background in. And for me, I'm gonna have this come down like this, just because project that I'm working on, an NFT project, actually. It's better for the portrait to come down inside of the bottom. That's because maybe I'll use this in a generative collage of some sort at some point. But for right now, we're just focusing on our blocks. Now I feel like we're missing a little bit of pink. You know, it's like we're composing a symphony and there's no oboe. What would a symphony be without an oboe? This pink is our oboe. You want to be careful with areas like this to just put it down, set it and forget it. We don't want to mess it up too much. We want to keep that initial freshness of these brush strokes. I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow to that, make an orange. It'll be kind of like a shadow color for this. Do you see anything in this blob yet? Is anything beginning to come out? Not quite sure. Just putting in these shadow areas. It's okay to mix with the paint on the canvas. That's one thing about working with acrylics, is that oftentimes they just dry so fast. You don't get a lot of time to mess with them. I'm just adding a little bit of white to that orange. And now we've got a kind of a fleshy Caucasian color. I'm just going to start working that in. It's going to start acting like there's areas which are lighter. It's like we're painting a big cloud. There's no right way to do it, no wrong way to do it. Just let the paint talk. Let it mix in this stage. Now normally I would spend a lot more time, but I kind of like having a time limit on this painting. Really requires you to break down what you're doing to the basics, not fuss around so much. And ideally we get into some sort of flow state where we're just working without thinking too much. Right now I just want to cover up all those white areas. I'm just grabbing more of my white, mixing it with that orange. There we go. Let's just get this bottom part filled in. Paint. It's important to get rid of all that white in the beginning because you don't want that white to throw off your values. You want to create your own world and your own light. And that white is so bright that it really interferes with these other values. We get the bottom here. There we go. Perfect. Feeling like we lost a lot of our blue there, so I'm going to mix up a light blue just to put a couple notes. Maybe this blue is a piccolo in our composition. Just a little piccolo sounding off, making its presence known in the world. And when I put the paint down, I kind of want to just let it glide off my brush. The more I mess, the more we turn to gray. So we just want to work on top of the surfaces that are already there. Good. Now one thing that's missing is a bit of red. I'm going to make this a little messier. Now I can start to see the face coming out of this. Looks like some sort of maybe a small bear. Maybe it's a small bear in the forest, a little baby bear. If you don't see it, it might be like somebody lying on the ground and they say, look at that cloud. Do you see that bulldog in that cloud? You may see it or you may not see it. Still working around with this. I really want to get some messiness. This will help us define our other layers. And at this point, we're going to hop over to the airbrush. Even though it's still wet, I know my time is ticking. So we're going to get our airbrush rolling, and I'm just going to put a little bit of blue into it. Got to put my mask on. And we're going to start carving out some different areas with that blue. Don't need much in this brush. Just imagining where would that light source be. The airbrush kind of takes away the very gestural mark making we had before and just softens it up. You can do anything you want. Give it 2 little ears. You want to draw at this stage, doesn't matter. Let's get a little bit of yellow in there. You want things to be messy at first. Nothing wrong with being a little messy in the beginning. Always got to clean our airbrush quite frequently. Make sure it's clean in between runs. Sometimes we get just a little bit of schmutz on the end. You can just clean that off. Now we're back. There we go. Now it's unclogged. And we can come in once again. Come in with a darker color this time. And really start making it apparent where these edges are. It's always fun to paint over airbrush when it's all in wet paint, because you can really cut those edges. Just adding some more dimension. Really messy at this stage. Just making candy for the eye. The best way to get somebody interested in one of your paintings is to seduce them with just color and shape and form and these sort of things. You just have to let the paint kind of happen. Bring that piccolo back. Piccolo pink. Starts to feel more like an ear. The second ear. Just a little teddy bear. I got a lot of paint left here. I just want to use that up before we move on to oils. I'm going to try to reinforce this background. That's a little better. Getting rid of those brush strokes. Further outlining what's this creature that we're making. We can make up any creature to be in our world. There we go. Get rid of those brush strokes and establish that background. There. Now yours might not be looking as messy as mine. That's okay. You can always, maybe just experiment and fill up different cups full of different colors and allow them to be on the canvas and pour them and splash them. Most importantly, sometimes you just have to let things be. That's one thing we like about painting, is to see that brush mark. In a time of photography, of course, we could always just take a picture. Now I do have my source image here, but I'm just going to look for a baby bear. See what I find. Baby bear. There. Let's see what we get. There's a cute little guy. Very good looking little bear. I'm just going to look through these and kind of see an image that resonates with us. Kind of see how those ears go. Very round head, don't they? Have a very, very round head. Nose area. So kind of this triangle between their nose. There we go. I knew this bump was going to be a problem when I made it, so you can just get rid of that. It's the great thing about painting. If you want to change something, you can always do it fast. And if you do it, you don't have to think too much. It's kind of like playing the saxophone or something like that. No, I don't play the saxophone, but I imagine the person playing it doesn't think, oh, this is an A minor. You got to go to E minor now. You just kind of naturally let it happen. There. Now we can see our bear beginning to take shape. And of course, this is going to be an amorphous bear, because as everything, our personalities and who we are is also changing a lot. We can put a facial filter on our face, get a bear nose if we want one. It's part of the benefits of living in the 21st century. Because we all have these masks that we put on. We all have these curated selves that we have online. Maybe this bear will be one of my curated selves. Or somebody I know. You can think about it like that. Trying to establish a little bit of the lights so we can have some idea that this thing has form. And I'm just plopping white in. Pretty simple with this bear. Just plop a bit of white in. There. That looks more bear-like. We can see how it shrinks down. His ears still aren't working quite right for me. That's okay. I'll get it figured out here. There we go. Nice. Just a little baby bear off in the woods. If you've ever seen the movie The Bear, it's actually quite good. It's a movie, I don't think there's any words in the film. It's by a French director. Made one of my favorite movies, Quest for Fire. But it's just about a little bear in the woods and his adventures that he has by himself. Of course, with movie type of stories, there needs to be a bit of drama, and I believe the bear's mother is killed by hunters. So this little bear has to forge his own path alone. One of the funniest scenes in the film is when the bear takes mushrooms, or just eats some magic mushrooms, and has a psychedelic journey. Maybe this bear here is reminiscent of that psychedelic journey that bears take. Of course, a lot of animals use different types of psychedelics. Reindeer being one of the most well-known. Reindeer would eat so much magic mushrooms that reindeer urine actually became sought after for its psychedelic properties. There we go. Just letting him emerge out of the darkness here. He's got his own path and his own way. It's some indication of a furriness to him. Not just letting the colors play with one another. Still only using acrylics at this point. This is kind of one of those moments when I wish things could dry up a little bit more. A little bit quicker. Of course, one of the great benefits of using acrylic paint is that it dries rather quickly, whereas oil paint seems to take quite a long time to dry. So we're just gonna literally watch paint dry for a minute. Kind of get our finger in there. Some of these areas that are built up a bit more are gonna take a little bit longer to dry. And that's okay. We can approach different areas as they come. Maybe a good time to show you how my airbrush works. It's got a needle that pops in the back like that. And that needle comes out of this little tip here. Little hole here at the end. You maybe be able to see that, maybe not. But that little needle comes and pokes right out of that hole. And when you're using an airbrush, you push down to get air. When you pull back, this thing needs to be tightened, of course. When you pull back, that little needle leaves that tip, and it allows the paint from this cup to come out. And take this cup apart too. It's a really simple machine, but I've had this one for quite a few years. And need a few replacement parts for it. But it's still doing the job, basically, which is the most important. So you push down for air, pull back. You can see a little bit of that water that was left in there came out. And I'm just going to take a little bit of black, kind of reinforce couple different points that I see. Ooh, got a little splatter there. That was my fault for not cleaning it, not getting all the water out of it. Now we can see that this is a little darker down there. Let's really establish those eyes. And of course, center point there. Oh, people that are really into airbrush are probably cringing at mine airbrush's performance, but normally I'd take some time to take it apart and clean it right now, but we are rolling, so I've got to work with what I got. I've used up all the black. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe it's good just to use up that black. Don't get too overrun by it. Let's see, are we dry? Still not dry. Some areas are beginning to dry. You can kind of see where I went over kind of just pull that airbrush out and get another texture. You can just finger paint a bit. There we go. Just finger paint our guy a little bit. Now you can see on this side I actually prefer the vertical canvas when I'm painting, or vertical palette I should say, parallel to my painting. And this allows me a space to mix my colors and see my colors right next to my painting, because when I'm mixing, I want to see those colors. This is a 10. I want a little bit smaller brush for this. I'm going to go with an 8 flat. And here we've got ivory black, phthalo green, phthalo blue, cadmium red medium, alizarin crimson, some purple, cadmium yellow, titanium white, and zinc white. I prefer to use a lot of very opaque colors, hence the cadmiums. You don't want to eat these, they're kind of toxic. So make sure if you're eating chips or sandwiches and you've got hands like these, just be a little bit careful. You know, you don't want anybody to end up eating, ingesting cadmium. It won't kill you all at once, but over time it's not healthy for your body. You ever see those reports of children that were sucking on these toys made in China that were recalled? They often use cadmium because it's a very powerful pigment. However, it's not one that you want to eat. And I just mixed up a nice little, just black and red. Maybe give it a hint of yellow, just to give it that purplish feel. There we go. So now we got a darker color. And we're kind of coming off of this. And we just want to strengthen up some areas. Again, the paint is not totally dry, but you know, is it good to paint with oils on top of wet acrylic paint? No, it's not. It's not preferable, but when you're just letting things flow, you just kind of let them happen. I kind of like that shape, this big shape that we're seeing of the mouth here. How that mouth is starting to emerge and come out. I'm also thinking a bit about time, because normally I would be able to manage my time a little bit to the point where things make a bit more sense, but at this point we want to just establish these eyes. You can be a little bit more particular about them later. But I want this idea that this thing is flowing, because you can kind of see how his fur is flowing here. And we can kind of see that he's got some little fuzz, a little bit of bear fuzz. You know, of course, if I saw a baby bear in the wilderness, I would run away. Even though that's exactly what you're not supposed to do, I'd probably first take out my phone and take a picture, to be honest. Post it quickly to Instagram stories or TikTok, and then I would leave. Probably running. But should you encounter a bear, from what I've told, and I did live in bear country for a while in Boulder, Colorado. Beautiful place. But I did live in bear country, and they advised that you should just back up slowly. I think you're not supposed to look them in the eye. It's confrontational. But a fight with a bear wouldn't end well for anybody. So you just want to avoid it. Maybe bring some bear spray with you. But if I encountered this little guy in the wilderness, I probably wouldn't spray him. Probably just enjoy his presence for a moment and let him go about his way. Let me go about my way. Of course, he does experience the world very differently than I. There's no need for a human-centric view of the world to interfere with his. He's got every right to be out there too. Wandering around and getting food. Going down to the river and getting some salmon. Just doing what a little baby bear does. That's what we're going to have this guy do. Just a little bear coming out of the ether. We're still just, these are just oils. We're going to give this guy kind of a cartoony smile. He's a friendly bear. He's happy to see us. Most bears wouldn't be too happy to see us. But this little guy, he doesn't know any better. There we go. Just a little bit more indication of that fur coming out. Just kind of making a crisscross motion with my brush there to get some of these angles. There we go. And this tells us a lot, you know, this tells us a lot about the form. What is the form of this thing that we're painting? Just a fuzzy little guy. Very light and fuzzy. This bear seems like he'd be a good companion in a dream, maybe. Instead of having a pet dog, you could have a pet bear in your dream. Be a little bit more particular about the nose here. It's just like a T coming out. There we go. Nice. Just a little T coming out there. Nice. You're going to want to get a better look at that eyeball. Let's see how that's constructed. Looks like we got a bit of a shadow on the top coming down. And there's that shadow on the bottom too. Of course, in the middle we've got that black. The eyes are always important in these. Obviously the eyes are too wide on this one, but this is an amorphous cartoon bear. Psychedelic bear on a journey. So it's okay. Let your bear eyes fall where they may. There's no wrong place to put them. There we go. Now working with oils is a bit less forgiving, but I'm just using a bit of linseed oil with some liquid in it. Sometimes you want to clean your brush just to make sure you're using clean colors. There's his little smile. He's happy to see you. Nice. And this edge too. There we go. Just a happy little creature in the forest. I've been kind of neglecting this area a little bit. Probably block some stuff in there too. There's a little guy you want to just cuddle up with, fall asleep with at night. And you think about teddy bears and why we need them, why we want to hold on to a squishy little animal before we fall asleep. Probably something comforting about taking care of something else. And of course, evolution makes them fuzzy and cute, so their mothers don't kill them. It's actually some indication that cuteness is evolutionary. And we want to save cute things. And those cute things tend to be little. Kind of an innate maternal instinct in everybody. Just look at the cute little animals out there and take care of them. Kind of like this guy. I feel like maybe he needs a name. I think I'm gonna call him Filbert. Little Filbert. There we go. And Filbert's just having one of those days where he got into some mushrooms down by the river. So he's really happy about the world right now. Happy about all the colors that he sees. He's losing his sense of self a little bit, and that's okay. And my hand is got quite a bit of paint on it. Just gonna grab a baby wipe and clean it up. If I can find my baby wipes. Because it's not good to have cadmium yellow on your hands. And we're just going to clean those hands up a little bit. I used to wash my hands so often when I was painting that they'd get really dry. So you have to make sure to moisturize if that's the case. Most of this is acrylic. And those colors shouldn't be as toxic as the cadmium yellow is. So we got about 15 more minutes on this guy. Since this is again an amorphous blobby spirit bear, we need a little bit of, we want to get some amorphous little blobs in there. So we just splash around some color. And we're imagining these blobs kind of bumping into each other. There we go. All the colors coming in and out of each other. Just letting it happen. Nice. Let's have a bit of definition to them. They have a light spot and a dark spot. And they can also kind of tell us a bit about our bear and where he's at. Oh, where's Bear doing? Filbert the bear. I'm just kind of letting Filbert's world come a bit undone. What he knows as reality is slowly fading away. Being replaced by large blobs and shapes. There we go. We'll need a little bit of contrast up against that pink. So I'll be mixing up some blue as well. Just a light blue, phthalo blue. Well, these are very easy colors to get a wide variation of gradation, very simply. There we go. Just plop those in however you wish. Let Filbert's world kind of come undone. There we go. And give them a bit of definition as well. There's a big cosmic blue line coming out of his nostrils. It's kind of like a dragon bear. There we go. Just a happy little dragon bear, trying to do his thing. And we keep that overall shape, and we can still see that little bear in there. He's still there. It's just that what makes up the bear and what makes up the surrounding world are kind of morphing into each other, becoming something else. That's all it takes, is a trip down to the river and finding a couple mushrooms under a tree on the way. And our little bear's world begins to fall apart a little bit. But he's still there. Let's make this eye kind of, we want to have the eye there, but we don't really want it to follow any principles of reality. So I'm just gonna turn it into a big shape, kind of pulling out there. There we go. Nice. Let all these body parts kind of come undone a little bit. And smile is still there. And if you see something you don't like, you can always fix it up. Always turn it into something else. It's a great thing about painting. It doesn't need to match reality in any way. You're free to make up any world that you wish. There we go. I'm starting to feel that some of these shapes in the background need to cut out and make this shape. So that's what we're going to do now. Mix up quite a bit of color and use a larger brush. I'm going to mix up a dirty green. That dirty green is a nice way to make the other colors pop. I do that just with a little bit of cad yellow, phthalo blue, and then I add just a bit of red to it. That gives us kind of this nice olive green color. But you gotta put the red in it. Most people are scared to just put that little dab of red in there. There we go. And I'm just gonna start cutting his face out of here. Letting his face play with that background. There we go. Again, we don't want to fuss around with it too much. We want to just put these marks down and kind of leave them. Keep that freshness of the mark and don't muck too much stuff up. Some areas will be a little bit more fuzzy, of course. We'll just cut into those. But keep the overall gesture. And we'll all be good. I need more of this color than I had anticipated. That's all right. We'll just mix up a bit more. And if it changes in the background, that's all right too. We can let it change. Just blend that in. There we go. Nice. I'm just cutting out that foreground from that background. And use two separate layers. For our little baby bear cub. And we can always see where it takes us as we go. And this always just, came out of that initial image, came out of those initial scribbles, which still exist in that painting. But everything talks to each other in the end. And it's fun to start with a blank canvas, and if you really let yourself go and just paint without thinking, keep your colors fresh, make sure you don't get everything too muddy, have little sparks of red and little sparks of blue and little sparks of pink and green. And you'll end up with a happy little bear. like our guy Filbert here. And you can even name them and create a whole series if you want. Different animals. But the most important thing is to just set aside a little bit of time every day, just like you're learning to play the guitar or anything else, and devote that time to painting. We're going to bring some of that green in. Doesn't need to be everywhere. Just a couple little indications here and there. That world is also colliding with his internal world and his internal struggle. You know, contrary to popular opinion, a lot of these big animals like bears and lions and things we associate with being some of the strongest animals, they just spend a lot of time lounging around, not doing much at all. And you can do that too. You don't need to hustle every minute of the day. You can just lounge around and paint. Make a psychedelic bear painting. Can't go wrong. There's no mistakes. And I'm going to make him a little fuzzy here. Just so we can remember that little bear fuzz that he's got. There we go. Yeah, that's pretty close, I'd say. It's looking pretty good. Let's let the paint happen now. Coming up on the last few minutes that we've got. I'm just gonna blend these out a little bit. Find the contours that talk to the bear. And just kind of exploit what you got there. You might see some edges that happen naturally, and just let those edges happen. There we go. It's all there. The smiling, happy, psychedelic bear. And we just let these final pieces come together where they may. For our happy little bear. Bear cub in the forest. Hopefully his mother isn't around to jump out and eat us. But that's how nature works sometimes. Sometimes we're in awe of how beautiful it is, and the next minute we're running away from the bear, protecting its area and their land. There we go. We kind of reinforce these eyes. Nice. Maybe he's got a couple pieces that are completely flying off of him too. Kind of got this motion that happened naturally to the left. Like he's turning his head around. But parts of his brain are on the other side still. There we go. Just coming a little bit detached. He's got some little bits flying off here and there. There we go. So we've got the idea of the bear. I think we're just going to come in with a bit of highlights and we'll be done. We're over an hour now. So coming up on the limit of time that I've got. Thank you all for watching and coming on this bear journey. And I hope that you also made a bear that you're happy with. Oftentimes with starting these paintings is the hardest part. So hopefully by painting a psychedelic bear along with me, you've also been able to just get some paint on your canvas. Start feeling out your world. Start creating your own world, your own creatures. I see a little bit of these highlights in certain areas. We want to have some indication that there is light here. So I'm going to reinforce some of those. And just give some areas a little bit more light. And we got our bear. And now what I'll do is, once this is dry, of course, we can make another layer and kind of tighten things up a bit, but on this journey you get the basic idea of where the bear needs to happen. And there's that one area that kind of bugs me is the top of his head. Let's just clean that up and I think we're going to call it a day. This should be going down a little bit more than... I don't like that it's so flat. I think if the rest of his head is detaching from the world, coming undone, and this area should too. So I'll just take that out a little bit, like that. There we go. Don't ever be afraid to just let those back areas do the drawing on the front areas for you. Nice. Just like that. A little bit more blue. You can always find something it needs more of. And I could work on this painting for another couple hours easily. Needs a little bit more blue coming up in there. In this corner. There we go. Just a little bit more blue. Nice. There. So I hope you enjoyed painting along with me on this beautiful Sunday. And I hope you had your own journey with your own psychedelic animal. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.